For exposing my sister after she broke my 7-year-old's glasses? Everything was supposed to be normal. That's how it always starts, right? A plan that seems harmless on paper. A family visit, a holiday weekend, a quick drop-off so I could work my shift without having to manage childcare like a circus act. I'm a doctor. I'm used to emergencies. I'm used to blood, bile, and the kinds of screams that Tylenol can't fix. What I'm not used to is walking into a room full of my relatives and instantly feeling like I've just entered a room where something died. No, not literally, not yet, but something. I arrived at my parents' front door with the kind of exhaustion you feel in your bones. The caffeine had worn off 3 hours ago. The only thing keeping me upright was the thought of getting my daughter, Lily, home, into her pajamas, and letting my brain shut down like an old laptop. I opened the door expecting noise and chaos. The typical soundtrack of Grandma's house. Cartoons blasting, kids running around, someone yelling for juice. Instead, the house felt staged, like the air itself had been scrubbed clean. Mom was at the counter stacking plates. Dad was in his recliner as if he had been glued to it. My sister Leah was on the sofa, phone in hand, with a relaxed air that seemed performative. And Lily was sitting on the rug, tiny and still, her hands in her lap like she was waiting for a verdict. She didn't look up when I came in. That was the first thing that hit me. My daughter isn't dramatic. She doesn't fake emotions or throw tantrums. When she gets upset, she gets quiet. She retreats into herself. And right now she looked folded in on herself, small, tense, as if trying to take up less space. Then I saw her hands. Not mangled, not bleeding, just wrong. Right at the knuckles, they were slightly bruised in a way that made my stomach clench. The kind of bruises you get from scrubbing something for too long, too hard with the soft skin of a child. She also wasn't wearing her glasses. Lily needs her glasses. She has worn them for so long that putting them on is as automatic as breathing. Without them, she squints and her head hurts. With them, she's just Lily. Book-obsessed, quietly funny. Always observing the world like it's a puzzle she's trying to solve. So seeing her barefaced, her gaze slightly unfocused, I stopped in the doorway. "Hey, sweetie," I said, my voice calm, as if nothing in my chest had just shifted. Lily flinched. Not a dramatic jump, just a small internal startle, as if my question were a trap. Leah answered before Lily could. She dropped them. Her tone was smooth, too smooth, like when you've rehearsed something and you're waiting to see if anyone challenges you. I took another step closer. "Where did she drop them?" Leah shrugged, her eyes glued to her screen. "Somewhere." Mom didn't look up from her plates. "It's not a big deal, Brooke." That was the second blow. When your child is 7 and something is not a big deal to the adults, it usually means it very much is. I crouched in front of Lily. "Honey, where are they?" Lily stared at the rug. "I dropped them," she whispered. Her voice sounded like she was reading from cue cards. Leah let out a short, clipped laugh. She was pushing boundaries today. I looked up. "What kind of boundaries?" Leah finally glanced up from her phone. "Oh, you know, touching things she shouldn't. Not listening. Acting entitled." Mom clattered a dish into the sink with more force than necessary. Kids need to learn. Dad turned a page of his newspaper as if trying to disappear into it. Lily was still hunched over. She kept her hands clenched in her lap, as if she couldn't trust them. Across the room, Caleb, Leah's son, squinted his eyes in an exaggerated way and whispered something to Hannah and Wyatt, his 2 sisters. They giggled. Not loud enough to get in trouble, just loud enough for Lily to hear. That's the kind of cruelty that always lands. Not a punch, not a yell, but a quiet laugh that says, "We can do this right in front of you." I kept my expression steady. I learned to do that in emergency rooms and trauma bays. When you panic, people panic harder, so you don't. You make your calm a weapon. "Okay," I said. "Can I see them?" Leah got up, walked over to the coffee table, and picked up a small pile of something. She dropped it into my hand like she was giving me a receipt. Lily's broken glasses. The frame was bent. One lens had a crack spiderwebbed across the plastic like a lightning bolt. The hinge was twisted in a way that gravity couldn't have caused. Mom glanced at them and shrugged. "We'll figure it out." The cousins let out another whispered giggle. Lily didn't look up. I swallowed whatever was rising in my throat. "We're leaving." Mom finally looked at me. Brooke. I'm leaving, I repeated. Still calm. Leah lifted her chin. Don't be dramatic. I didn't answer. I grabbed Lily's backpack with my free hand and held out my other one to her. Lily rose slowly as if she were afraid she'd be punished for moving. Her hand slid into mine. Her fingers were cold, stiff. We drove away. Lily stared out the window and said nothing. I didn't push her. Not yet. I got home, brought her inside, and immediately pulled the spare pair of glasses from her drawer. Because of course she has a spare pair. I'm not a monster. I'm a single mom with a child who needs to see. We have backups for everything. I have backups for my backups. I have backups for my faith in humanity, and even those are running low. Lily put them on, and her shoulders relaxed a fraction, like her brain could finally stop straining. Physically, she was safer. Emotionally, she looked as if she were still sitting on that rug, hearing her cousin's laughter. I checked her hands under the kitchen light. The redness around her knuckles was more apparent. Now there were faint bruises too, nothing severe, but enough to make me want to go back there and rearrange the furniture with my bare hands. Did you fall? I asked softly. Lily shook her head. Did you hurt your hands doing something? Her eyes met mine, then darted away. No. The cue cards again. I didn't press. I made dinner. Macaroni and cheese because I wasn't emotionally stable enough for vegetables. Lily barely ate. Later, after her bath, after she was in her pajamas, after I had brushed her hair and pretended my heart wasn't hammering against my ribs, I sat on the edge of her bed. Hey, I said. Lily's lips pressed together. She looked at her blanket as if it might give her instructions. I kept my voice gentle. You're not in trouble. I'm not mad at you. I just need to understand. Silence. Then, I did something bad. My heart sank. You did something that made them angry. That doesn't mean you did something bad. Lily swallowed. Her voice came out in halting pieces, as if she were dodging landmines. I thought Aunt Leah was watching a video on her phone, so I looked. Just for a second. Okay. And she got really mad. Like really mad. Lily's fingers twisted the edge of her blanket. She said I was being disrespectful. And she said I had to learn respect. My hands grew still in my lap. And then she took my glasses. I didn't speak. I didn't breathe. She threw them on the floor, Lily whispered. And she stepped on them. Hard. Lily's voice cracked. I told her I couldn't see. She said I should have thought of that. My mind tried to stay clinical. My body tried to turn into fire. Lily kept going quieter. Then she made me clean the kitchen. And I did, but she said it wasn't good enough. So I had to do it again. My eyes locked on her hands. And again. And again, Lily said. My hands hurt. And Grandpa? I asked. Lily gave a small shrug. He was there. The kind of answer that means he didn't stop it. Lily's voice got even lower. I felt something inside me crack and stay broken. Lily blinked rapidly. Mom, am I bad? I leaned forward and gently cupped her face in my hands. No, I repeated. You are not bad. What happened to you was bad. That's not the same thing. She started crying then quietly, like she didn't want to get in trouble for taking up space. I held her until her breathing evened out. When she was finally asleep, I took my phone and opened my camera roll. I photographed the broken glasses from every angle. Then I sat in the dark kitchen, staring at the shattered frame like it was a crime scene. I didn't scream. I didn't call Leah. Not yet. I took a deep breath, the kind you take before you walk into an operating room, and I started making plans. Because 9 hours after I learned what they did to my child, their lives began to fall apart. People don't wake up one morning and decide to be cruel. They practice. They perfect it like a skill, wrap it in polite words, and teach it to their children like it's good manners. In my house growing up, my mother called it being strict. Strict meant if you spilled milk, you got a lecture so long it could qualify for college credit. Strict meant if you talked back, you learned to be afraid. Dad didn't hit. Dad didn't yell. Dad perfected the art of being physically present while spiritually checking out. He would sit in his recliner, sigh when Mom yelled, and act as if silence was neutrality instead of consent. Leah learned early how to survive in that ecosystem. Smile at the right time. Say yes, ma'am. Be the good one. And when she did, the lightning stopped hitting her. It hit me. That's how families like this work. They don't change, they just pick a new target. As a teenager, I could read the footsteps like the weather. Fast steps meant rage. Slow steps meant a sermon. Silence meant something worse was coming. Leah learned how to use it. If she broke something, she would cry first. If she got caught, she would gasp as if she were the one who had been betrayed. Mom would swoop in, comfort her, then turn on me like I had committed the crime. I don't know when exactly I gave up on fairness. It wasn't a dramatic moment. It was more like erosion, one small injustice at a time, until you just accept the shape of your life. I became a doctor because it was the first place where the rules made sense. There's still injustice in medicine. People get sick for no reason. Children suffer. Bad things happen to good families. But at least the rules are real. Cause and effect exist. You treat pneumonia, the lungs get better. You stitch a wound, the bleeding stops. At home, cause and effect were negotiable. I kept in contact with my parents because that's what happens when you've been trained to feel guilty for breathing. And because when Lily was born, I looked at her and felt something I had never felt as a child. Protective love. The kind that makes you want to build a world for them where they are safe. So I tried. I tried to give her grandparents, cousins, and aunt. I told myself it would be different with her. It wasn't. First, it was more subtle. Little things. Leah's kids, Caleb, Hannah, and Wyatt, were treated like the main characters. They got the first slice of cake. The biggest presents. The loudest praise. Lily got smiles that felt like charity. Sometimes Leah would say things like, "Lily is so sensitive," and Mom would laugh like it was a character flaw instead of a red flag. Sometimes Caleb would tease her quietly, and Hannah and Wyatt would giggle, and the adults would pretend not to hear. Sometimes I would catch Lily watching them, her shoulders slightly hunched, like she was trying to figure out which rule she had broken. And worst of all, sometimes I told myself it was just normal cousin and sibling stuff because denial is cheaper than seeing. I also helped them financially. Not because I'm a saint, but because it was a way to buy peace. Mom and Dad had expenses. Leah had gaps. There were fees, activities, little emergencies that somehow always landed in my lap. I covered things here and there. A bill, a camp fee. We're short on a uniform this month. Some of that occasional help went to Leah's kids. Activities, fees, little gaps I filled. All while Lily was still treated like she should be grateful just to be included. It was the family version of paying rent to be tolerated. And then there was Uncle Russell Whitman. Technically my great-uncle, depending on how you count family trees. To Lily, he was just the uncle who made her feel like she wasn't taking up too much space. He remembered her birthday. He asked about her books. He talked to her like she was a person, not a minor inconvenience. When he passed away recently, I mourned his loss deeply. Not loudly or theatrically, just the quiet grief of realizing the one decent adult in my extended family was gone. After Uncle Russell's death, family gatherings felt tense in a way I couldn't place. Not because of anything anyone said, but because people stopped meeting my eyes, because conversations ended when I walked into rooms, because something had shifted under the surface and no one was going to tell me what it was. I told myself it was grief, stress, that everyone processes differently. I told myself a lot of things. And then Leah crushed my daughter's glasses under her foot and called it respect, and suddenly my brain stopped accepting lies as comfort. I didn't wake up angry the next morning. I woke up cold. There's a difference. Anger is loud. It wants to fight. It wants to be seen. Cold is quiet. It wants to end things. Lily was sitting at the kitchen table in her spare glasses, tracing circles on her placemat like she was trying to erase herself. She looked up when I came in, her eyes holding that specific childhood look of expecting a punishment you don't deserve. "Hey," I said, my voice steady. "You are not in trouble." "Okay." She nodded, but her shoulders stayed tight. I made coffee, opened my laptop and logged into my bank account. I didn't do it dramatically. I didn't slam the keys or mutter speeches of revenge. I just stopped paying. One by one I canceled everything. The recurring assistance, the small transfers, the automatic payments that had become background noise in my life. The support I had been giving Mom and Dad. Leah's occasional bailouts. The fees that weren't my responsibility but had become my reality. Cancel. 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 Every click felt like taking back my own oxygen. Then I wrote one message in the family group chat. No caps, no emotional paragraphs, just facts. Leah destroyed Lily's glasses. The cost to replace them is $800. I expect immediate reimbursement. You will not have access to Lily. Do not contact her. Do not come to my house. I hit send and waited. Not for a reply but for Lily. Because what happened didn't just break plastic. It broke something inside her. After breakfast, Lily lingered near the living room doorway as if she wasn't sure where she was allowed to be. Mom, she asked, her voice small. Why was Aunt Leah so mad at me? I sat on the sofa and patted the cushion next to me. Lily sat down carefully, like the sofa belonged to someone else. I don't know, I said honestly. But you didn't deserve what she did. Lily looked at her hands. The faint bruising on her knuckles was still there, a quiet sign of what happened. I didn't even do anything, she whispered, her voice wobbling in that way that makes you want to crack the universe in half for hurting your child. I kept my voice calm. Tell me what you remember. Lily hesitated. It was stupid. Okay. I just thought she was watching a video like a TikTok. I nodded. Kids are kids. Curiosity isn't a crime. And when I looked, Lily said, frowning, it wasn't even interesting. It was boring. Like adult stuff. She scrunched up her face as if trying to pull the memory from a fog. Like an email. I didn't read it, I just, Do you remember anything you saw? Lily shook her head then paused. There was a word like trust. I don't know what that is. My coffee stopped tasting like coffee. Lily continued, oblivious that she had just dropped a grenade in my lap. And I saw Uncle Russell's name, she added, still focused on how unimportant it had seemed. Just for a second. I didn't even want to read it. She shrugged, as if the most confusing part was that her aunt had overreacted to something boring. I kept my face neutral by sheer force of will. Okay, I said quietly. Thanks for telling me. Lily's eyes lifted. Am I in trouble? No, I said, and this time my voice didn't waver. You are safe. She exhaled as if she had been holding her breath since yesterday. I hugged her. I held her longer than usual. Not because she needed it, though she did, but because I needed the reminder that she was here with me and not on someone else's floor, scrubbing until her hands bruised. Then my phone rang. Leah. Mom and Dad were on speaker within seconds like it was a coordinated emergency. Leah didn't even bother with hello. What is this message? Mom's voice cut in sharply. Brooke, what are you doing? I kept my voice flat. I'm done. Leah scoffed. Done with what? Your temper tantrum. You destroyed Lily's glasses. I said you're paying for them and you are not seeing her. Leah rushed out. That's not what happened. Mom jumped in immediately as if waiting for her cue. And you're cutting off the payments, Leah added as if that were the real crime. Are you serious? Dad said nothing. Of course. Leah's denial was sloppy, littered with justifications she couldn't stop herself from adding. We didn't destroy anything, she said, and then immediately, she was being disrespectful. She needed consequences. So which is it? A tragic accident or a punishment? Pick a lie and commit to it, Leah. This is amateur hour. I didn't argue. I am not paying for you anymore, I said. And you are not touching my child. Mom's voice rose. You're tearing this family apart. No, I said calmly. You did that when you stood there and watched. There was a moment of silence, and in that silence, I heard something I'd never heard from them before. Fear. Because the leash had been broken. Leah hissed, you can't do this. I almost laughed. The entitlement was stunning. I already did, I said. Don't call Lily. Don't come here. Pay for the glasses. And then I ended the call. Not because I'd won an argument, because I wasn't having one. Lily peeked around the corner. Was that Aunt Leah? I forced my voice back to gentle. Yes. Lily's eyes welled up. Is she mad? Let her be mad, I said. That's not your job to fix. That night after Lily was asleep, I sat at my laptop again. Not my bank account. This time I searched Russell Whitman, obituary, law firm, estate, the kind of boring adult words Lily had dismissed as nothing. And for the first time the question in my head wasn't, why did she do this? It was, what were they hiding that made her do this? The lawyer's office smelled like coffee that had given up on life. Daniel Porter had the kind of calm only people who deal with paperwork disasters for a living can have. He had the sort of face that suggested he had seen families implode over less than a toaster. I gave him the short version, the useful version. Lily's glasses, the crush, the forced cleaning, the fixation on respect, the phone, the word trust, Uncle Russell Whitman's name in an email. Daniel didn't flinch. He just nodded slowly like a man checking boxes in his head. You want to know if there was a trust, he said. I want to know why my sister reacted like my 7-year-old committed espionage, I answered. Daniel's mouth twitched into almost a smile. Fair enough. He asked for names, dates, relationship lines. Mom's and dad's names too, because legal documents don't care that I call them mom and dad. He didn't promise miracles. He promised process. And then, because life likes to hit you in patterns, we moved quickly. Not because nothing happened, but because it was mostly emails, calls, and waiting. The kind of waiting that makes your skin itch. When Daniel called me back, his voice had changed. Not panicked, not dramatic, just heavier. There is a trust, he said. My stomach clenched anyway. Tied to Russell Whitman, he continued. Your daughter is listed as the beneficiary. I gripped the phone tighter. How much? Daniel paused, as if letting the number land properly. $240,000, he said. Owed to your daughter. In trust. I sat down so fast I almost missed my chair. My daughter. Lily. $240,000. It wasn't missing. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't paperwork lost in the mail. Daniel's next sentence was the one that turned my coldness into something sharper. Your parents are named as the trustees, he said. And there is no record of a distribution being made to your daughter. My mouth was dry. So they just kept it. Daniel exhaled. Based on what I can see, yes. For a second I couldn't speak. Not because I didn't have words, but because all the words I had were violent. Daniel continued, all business. We can pursue this formally. Demand an accounting. File in court. Seek removal of the trustees. Seek recovery and criminal? I asked quietly. Daniel paused again. If the funds were intentionally withheld or misappropriated, you can file a police report for theft or fraud. That's separate from the civil process. But yes. My voice came out flat. Do it. Daniel didn't argue. He didn't ask if I was sure. He just said, okay. So we moved. We filed what we needed to file, demanded what we needed to demand, and put everything in writing so no one could misremember it later. And yes, I went to the police. Not about the glasses, not about the kitchen, but for the fact that adults who called themselves my family had looked at my daughter's future and decided it belonged to someone else. The report itself was the most surreal part. Sitting in a chair under fluorescent lights, explaining that my parents, had withheld $240,000 that was owed to my child. The officer's eyebrows went up higher with every sentence. Your parents were the trustees, he repeated. Yes. And you only found out because my 7-year-old glanced at my sister's phone, I said. And my sister responded by crushing her glasses under her foot. He stared at me for a beat, then said slowly, okay. That was it. No big speeches. Just the soft click of a pen and the sound of consequences becoming real. Once the official notices went out, the silence broke. Not with calls, but with a knock at my door. I looked through the peephole and saw Mom holding a plate of cookies. Because nothing says, please don't involve the legal system, quite like baked goods. Dad stood behind her, looking like he wanted to be anywhere else. Leah stood off to the side, arms crossed, her smile so tight it could have cut glass. I opened the door but didn't invite them in. Mom's voice was sweet. Too sweet. Brooke, honey. We just want to talk. She held the plate of cookies up slightly, as if sugar could rewrite history. I looked at the cookies. Mom blinked innocently. We don't know what you mean. I smiled then. I couldn't help it. Dry humor is sometimes the only thing that holds me upright. Right, I said. Just like you don't know what happened to Lily's glasses. Mom's sweetness flickered. Leah stepped forward. This is ridiculous. You're ruining everything over nothing. Over nothing, I repeated. $240,000 is nothing now. Dad finally spoke, his voice low. Brooke. I held up a hand. Talk to Daniel Porter. Mom's face tightened. We're family. I've noticed, I said. Leah's smile snapped. You don't understand what you're doing. Oh, I do, I said. For the first time in my life, I understand perfectly. Mom's voice got sharper. You are humiliating us. Funny, I said. Because Lily's hands were bruised from scrubbing while you watched. Leah snapped now. She shouldn't have been looking at my phone. And there it was. Not a denial, a justification. A confession with good manners. Leah, Mom hissed. But Leah was already spiraling because guilt makes people stupid. She was disrespectful. Leah spat. She needed to learn. And now you're trying to steal from our kids. I laughed once, short and cold. Your kids. Mom stepped forward, her eyes bright. Do you have any idea how unfair this is? I tilted my head. Tell me. Mom's mouth worked and then she said it. The thing they'd all been choking on since Uncle Russell Whitman died. It's unfair, she snapped. That Lily would get so much more than the other grandkids. Leah jumped in as if she'd been waiting for permission. She's an only child. She gets everything. Meanwhile, my kids. And there it is, I said softly. The motive. The reason. You weren't protecting Lily. You were protecting your own math. Mom's face went pale as she realized what she'd admitted. Dad stared at the porch like it might swallow him whole. Leah glared at me. You're really doing this? Yes, I said. I am. I took a step back. Talk to Daniel. Mom's voice rose, desperate now. Don't do this. I looked at her, really looked, and felt something quiet settle inside me. You did this, I said. When you decided my daughter's future belonged to someone else. Then I closed the door. Not dramatically. I was just done. Time passed the way it does when lawyers are involved. In documents, deadlines, and the occasional email that makes your ribs tighten. Lily wore her spare glasses while we got the destroyed pair replaced. Her hands healed. The bruises faded. The quiet, apologetic reflex took longer, but it faded too. The trust issue was settled. Lily's $240,000 was recovered and properly secured with safeguards that didn't involve my parents' signatures. Mom and Dad were removed as trustees because trustee is a job title, not a birthright. Criminal charges were filed, too. No prison time. This wasn't a movie. But enough to hurt in all the right places. Probation, fines, and community service. The kind of community service that comes with a fluorescent vest and people you know driving by, pretending not to look. And yes, the extended family found out. Secrets don't survive court filings. The invitations dried up. The phone calls slowed. The people who once nodded along about respect and discipline suddenly got very busy. Funny how morality shows up when there's paperwork. Leah's life shrank. Mom's social circle did that quiet thing where it evaporates. Dad stayed quiet. As always. Silence isn't innocence, but it is consistent. As for us, we went no contact. Lily stopped apologizing for taking up space. One night, months later, she asked me, Mom, are we okay? I thought about the bruised hands, the broken glasses, the cookies on the porch, the one word, trust. That changed everything. And I said honestly, yes, we're okay. Because peace isn't the absence of noise. Sometimes it's the sound of a door closing and staying closed. Comment. This story is a powerful reminder to all of us. True strength isn't found in silently enduring pain, but in the courage to say no more. It teaches us that protecting our children and our own well-being is not a selfish act. It is a necessary one. Sometimes the healthiest and most loving choice we can make is to close a door so we can build a better, safer home behind it. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.